Hello, I'm Pip Courtney. Welcome to A Taste of Landline, where we take you across the country to showcase the very best in food, fibre and more. Coming up, growing an Aussie appetite for goat.
Texturally, it's more, I would say, close to lamb than anything else, but the flavour slightly more gamey, but it is a very, very versatile meat.
Working farms which double as campgrounds.
We've met some particularly great people and from all walks of life doing all sorts of things, and we meet them on a good day.
And Tassie Bubbles, taking on champagne from Champagne.
G'day, I'm Prue Adams, on a property a couple of 100 kilometres from Broken Hill. This is feral goat country. But these days, instead of just being considered an environmental curse, they've been the saviour of many an outback pastoralist. Feral goats are endemic across inland eastern Australia. Aerial surveys show there are around 5 million in New South Wales alone. How they got here, nobody really knows. But there were goats in the first fleet. Reducing their numbers eases the grazing pressure on vegetation. But it's also a nice little earner for the landholder and the contract musterers who charge a percentage-based fee for their role.
With the price the way it is at the moment, it's a good source of income as well, but it's always good to get the numbers down so that our sheep can eat more and cattle and whatever else can be well fed.
For decades, these animals were treated mostly as feral pests, to be shot and left to rot. Now, they're viewed as a substantial asset.
There's definitely people who've still got that smelly goat kind of feeling about it. In the end, a lot of the goat producers I talk to are saying, that's the smell of money. God, what a blessing.
As Meat and Livestock Australia's goat industry project manager, Julie Petty fields many calls asking for information on how to make the most of wild goats.
A lot of the producers out in Western Queensland and Western New South Wales over the last 20 years without goats would have gone bankrupt. I mean, it's been a big part of their life for a long time.
Break steady boy.
The United States is our biggest market by far, accounting for 66% of supply, worth $138 million.
The US, we have a lot of Hispanic or Muslim populations that are really familiar with goat meat. They use it, it's part of their culture. It's got no religious issues attached with it, so it's a really accessible meat.
I'm Duncan Velkomit from Restaurant Africola, and today we're going to be cooking goats.
MLA is trying to build domestic demand for goat meat too. And the organisation, which is funded in part by meat producers' levies, has released a series of educational videos.
With the backstrap, and it being a wild animal, so we want to...
There's also a lot of confusion out in consumer land about, well, how do I cook and prepare goat? Looking at the differences between farmed and rangeland animals, doing a bit of a carcass breakdown and comparison, and looking at different cooking methods and how the product can be used in the restaurant trade, because there's a massive opportunity there.
Interestingly, the term feral is being phased out.
And goat always reminds me of something like Pyrenees lamb.
No, we don't use the F word if we can help it. Generally, the industry had rebranded a lot of the export product to the US as rangeland because that seemed to work well within that market, and it's just sort of come back home as well.
Which is one of our favourite herbs.
Australia is the world's biggest single goat meat exporter, and chefs like Adelaide's Duncan Velkomit are increasingly putting it on the menu here too.
Texturally, it's more, I would say, close to lamb than anything else, but the flavour slightly more gamey. But it is a very, very versatile meat, so, you know, I'm sure a lot of kitchens would snap it up.
He does find it difficult to get a consistent supply of the meat though.
It's not the easiest to order. It's quite inconsistent in terms of supply, I find. But when we do get it, I kind of like using goat neck or leg of goat, really.
Sorting a steady and reliable supply is something the Australian Goat Industry Council is working on.
Critical that we grow the industry. At the minute we're around that $250 million a year. You know, that's doubled in the last 7 years, 7 to 10 years.
While Rick Gates is the Industry Council's president, he also runs 2 trading depots in Western New South Wales. There are now dozens of these registered depots on pastoral lands in the northern states. They buy goats from other pastoralists, often only small numbers of 30 or so. Then they bundle the saleable animals together and send them to market, while setting aside nannies for breeding and the kids for growing out. Rick Gates says there's now a population forecasting committee in place, and more producers are using genetics and other farming techniques to increase the value of their wild catch.
I call it semi-farmed, where there's no domestication and the animal, like, it's not actually handled. It's hard to put your finger on the numbers, but I'm thinking probably where it was 100% harvested 10 years ago, we might be seeing 20 to 30% now that's semi-managed.
If there was a single sign the rangeland goat industry had come of age, it would be this. Out the back of Bourke in northwestern New South Wales, Australia's newest abattoir is under construction, and the $60 million enterprise is built almost entirely around slaughtering goats.
It's probably the largest facility of its kind in Australia, and certainly there's not many specialist goat abattoirs of this nature worldwide.
James Price is business advisor with Capra Developments, the company building the export-focused abattoir.
It's interesting to note in New South Wales that of Australia's exports of goats, New South Wales only contributes 1% of all exports. So at the moment we've got exports going out of Queensland, South Australia and Victoria, and they're the main 3 states. So there's a real opportunity there for New South Wales to increase its exports.
The company searched a number of locations before settling on Bourke, in part because the Shire Council was so supportive.
But to get a private enterprise to come to your town and put 200 jobs on the line and guaranteed 120 to start with and guaranteed that they'll give locals the job first, well, what do? I mean, you lay down the red carpet and say, yeah, please come to our town.
And really, really simple dish.
The others shouldn't be too far away, eh? After that, everyone goes away and we come back and we're 110% and we put in so much more effort, and we know that we're appreciated. So, you know, it's worth every cent.
Hello, I'm Courtney Wilson. Traditionally, graziers who have had to bolster their businesses have got second jobs or planted crops or maybe offered agistment. Nowadays, there are plenty of unique ways to diversify on farms, and one that's growing in popularity is camping. There's not a screen in sight. Good old-fashioned fun is the only thing on the agenda here. It's what camping is all about. But this isn't in a national park nor a bushland reserve. These campsites are actually on a working farm.
That's been more important than what we thought. We just thought, sit down, listen to the birds, see the animals, and that is important too. We weren't trying to hide the fact that we're a working property, but we were trying to put our camping in our forest country and our cattle in our cattle country. But people are fascinated by farms, and they're particularly fascinated by family farms.
Moamba is the epitome of a family farm. First and foremost, it's a cattle property, running about 200 head of Black Angus across 1,600 hectares. About 3.5 hours from Brisbane, but just over the border into New South Wales. This landscape is the northernmost part of the New England high country, and it's been home for Stuart and Wendy Bell and their two kids Emily and Matthew for 18 years. But for the last 5 years or so, the Bells have been busy diversifying their on-farm businesses to include camping.
We just love the property so much. We wanted to do something that didn't have high impact on the property and wanted to share what we have here, just hoping that people would be interested in not only the farm side of things but also the bush and the forest and just enjoying the quietness and the solitude of it, I suppose.
Don't be fooled by its laid-back charm though. This is no small affair.
And so we're here.
Yep.
Yes, so you're heading out to the Stormbird, which is this one here.
Fully booked out, it's between 300 and 400 people, so it's a lot. But when they're spread out through these camp areas, it doesn't feel like a lot of people. And a lot of people will say, oh, you must have 50 or 60 people here. And we'll say, no, there's 400. And they say, oh, really?
Bush camping on the Bells sprawls across about half their property. They did that intentionally, but it's meant a lot of hard work to get the campsites properly established.
This country up here has got a whole lot of different aspects to it, and we sort of wanted the campsites to show those aspects. And there's some on the creek, some in a forest, some out on the edge of our mountains, some in different areas of wetlands. And so by doing that, we've had to have multiple toilet facilities or amenities. And so we've got 4 separate toilet areas, amenity areas, and 4 different septic areas. And so we've had to get water to that and do that and have it all passed by council. But now that it's done, we're really happy that we've gone that way.
And so are their guests. It turns out toilet blocks are a big deal when it comes to keeping the weekend camping market happy.
To have flushing toilets and good showers, bit of a walk, who cares, it's good exercise.
The Williams family first visited in 2017 after stumbling across the Bells' bush camping experience on the internet. They loved it so much they've been back 7 times since. So what is it about bush camping in a setting like this that appeals to you?
Peace and quiet.
Peace and
no
quiet.
No one right there, no ropes to trip over, just ours.
There's a lot of space between all the campsites so the kids can play soccer, cricket, ride their bikes. Yeah, I love cricket.
The kids get to see where their food comes from, but 2 weeks ago we were here and the kids got to see Stuart and Wendy and Matt mustering, so that was good.
Yeah, who needs a TV?
Part of the appeal of farm camping is the chance for people to get off the grid and really experience the bush. But on big properties like this one, where there can be several kilometres between campsites, there are risks to consider. And one of them is bushfire safety. The Bells worked closely with the Rural Fire Service to make sure their campsites are properly maintained and to develop worst-case scenario plans in the event of an emergency.
We've got policies in place here for emergencies, mainly a bushfire.
There's been other considerations too, like adequate insurance coverage on what is, after all, a working farm.
Insurance doesn't negate your responsibilities for negligence. You still have to be careful about everything you do. You still have to be aware that even though this is camping, so dams don't have to be fenced, but you have to tell people when they're coming here that there are waterways here, kids can get into, and they have to be aware of that.
The camping business is growing in popularity, both on the Bells Place and more broadly. Tenterfield Shire Councillor Gary Very wants to see much more of it across the region.
You can have ecotourism, you can have camping, you can have whatever you like. Also, once you get a certain number of tourists in the district, you start attracting cottage industries. Look around Stanthorpe, you've got soap manufacturers, you've got wineries, you've got breweries, and that's the type of thing we want to see around Tenterfield.
Being somewhat off the beaten track, but still within a comfortable driving distance of major cities such as Brisbane and the Gold Coast, puts the Bells' bush camping experience in a bit of a Goldilocks zone for attracting weekenders. That's been really important for getting regular customers.
We've come out from Brisbane, yeah, so we left about 3 hours ago, so it was a good drive out here. And yeah, we came out here because we didn't want to handle the traffic of the Sunshine Coast or down at the Gold Coast, and we just wanted to somewhere peaceful, and we found this place on the internet, so we thought we'd give it a go.
Wendy Bell says for now, just relaxing in the great outdoors is the main reason people come to stay. But there are plans for other attractions to keep them coming back.
We've got someone who is looking at helping us with mountain biking, another way of enjoying what we have here, enjoying the peace and quiet in the bush. That can be combined, we're hoping, with, if we've got mountain biking trails, they can also be used for people bushwalking. We have lots of bird watchers.
More traditionally, graziers have chosen to bolster their businesses by getting second jobs or planting crops as well, or maybe offering agistment. For the Bells, it's been camping that's helped keep their relatively small family farm profitable.
Before the camping, this place wasn't a full-time job. It was in work, but in money, it wasn't a full-time job for 2 or 3 people. So yes, we've created more work, but then that's what we're here for.
The Bells believe the growing popularity of camping presents farmers with a unique opportunity. But they warn it's not easy work. It's relentless, and sometimes actually running the farm has to take a back seat.
Would you want it on the big 5 kit or the little one?
No, I think we'll give that one a go.
Yep. It's going to impact on your cattle management and your timing. It's going to be a constant thing.
Would you go there or would you go there?
Well, you can use either.
Okay.
You know, it's going to be everything from chatting to people to cleaning toilets. It's the whole gamut of service industry.
We've invited people here and we want to make sure that we do look after them. So yes, there's firewood, there's ice, there's making sure they get to the right campsite. We spend a lot of time doing those sorts of things.
But as with all hard work, they say the rewards make it more than worthwhile.
We've met some particularly great people, and from all walks of life doing all sorts of things, and we meet them on a good day. The idea of getting and seeing Australia is a growing thing, and the market is big.
You know, I would sort of say to anybody that's worried about foreign investment, there's an example here of a lot of foreign capital put into a great project that has been sitting there for years and not being able to be afforded by Australians.
In the last 18 months, Tasmania's sparkling winemakers have won a host of national and international awards. With Tasmania's sparkling grapes now the most expensive in the country, the industry says it's finally come of age. On a warm summer weekend, Tasmania's top sparkling wine producers hosted the 4th Effervescence Tasmania to promote their wines together, allies, not competitors. Just 15 wineries were invited, ensuring visitors tasted Tasmania's best.
Effervescence was about celebrating what Tasmania does best in sparkling wine and showcasing that we can actually compete on a world-class basis.
So I encourage you to look into these wines on a deeper level and see that there is an attention here that goes beyond just generic Tasmania.
As well as fine food and fizz, Effervescence is about education. At sell-out masterclasses, visitors learned how sparkling is made and how to taste it.
This state needs more vineyards because the world wants more Tassie fizz, I know I do.
Tyson Stelzer is one of Australia's foremost authorities on champagne and sparkling wine. He says Tasmania's sparkling wine industry has come of age, with Ed Carr, the winemaker for Arras, front and centre, making what he says are some of the most complex sparkling wines in the world.
In the wine shows of the big capital cities, still wines have won every single year as the wine of show, until Arras came forward in 2015 and won not once but 3 times at major shows, trumping every still wine in the country.
Tasmanian producers can't keep up with demand, vineyards are expanding, new ones are being established, and last year grape prices skyrocketed.
Tasmania set an all-time record for its grape prices, making Tasmanian fruit 77% more valuable than the Yarra Valley and 113% more valuable than the Adelaide Hills.
The French have had 300 years to perfect the sparkling wine process. The Tasmanians, barely 30.
This rosé is quite interesting in terms
Tyson Stelzer says Tasmania is set to ride the growing global popularity of sparkling rosé.
These are wines that are going gangbusters around the world, even though in Australia it's still gaining traction.
And what do you say to a bloke who says that's for the girls, it's pink?
Rosé is the latest term, and I love drinking rosé. It's no longer Barbie pink, it's no longer super sweet.
The state's latest sparkling rosé, Bellybon, is the first Nat Fryer has put out under her own label.
Everything I did, whilst was not economically sound, was the best decision I could make for the wine. So I'm really proud of it. It's 100% Pinot sparkling rosé. I think it's one of the greatest wines I've ever made.
Woo! The Queen of Bubbles, Tassie's leading lady of fizz. How do those monikers sit with you?
I think they're fairly humorous. It's nice to be regarded in that way, but I'm actually much more interested in just spending my time finding out how to make better sparkling wine from Tasmania.
Nat became the winemaker at Jance in the year 2000. After commuting between the Barossa and Tasmania for 15 years, she finally moved to Tassie and now works for Piper's Brook.
I look after all of their sparkling wines and I just love it. They've got some of the most beautiful vineyards, the most important vineyards in the history of Tasmania.
And she's certain the best sites haven't even been planted yet.
I'm actually getting excited right now just thinking about the possibility of what could come in the future. As we understand more about Tasmania, as we understand more about how grapes work here, we will find those sites and we'll be making wines that are just next level.
Well, we always love to show Tasmania off, and that's beautiful, and particularly up here at Jance.
This year, Effervescence offered a day of winery visits for the first time.
Thank you. There we go.
And that body of water influences this vineyard in an incredible way.
The Bubbles Trail started with Jance. With full flutes, just picked local strawberries, visitors enjoyed the stunning view out to Bass Strait. There was a mix of sophisticated professional palates and enthusiastic amateurs on the tour.
I've totally changed my mind about how I think of Australian sparkling. Like I used to not appreciate, and now I've been down here, I love it.
There are sparkling wines that match up to champagnes.
Big call.
Big call. And I'm a champagne drinker myself, so very big call.
Price point is another key. Under $40 in Australia, champagne is not worth drinking. But they're beautiful Tasmanian sparklings at those prices. Which did you like the best? 3 quite contrasting styles, of course.
The last masterclass of the day was a blind tasting. Students tasted wines from the US, mainland Australia, Tasmania and Champagne.
2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, yeah. Everybody. Excellent. The crowd vote for the favourite wine of the day was Arras EJ Carr 2003 vintage.
Tasmania's fortunate that while the old guard are at the top of their game, there's a new generation of talent right behind them. And they all know they can't squander the extraordinary position the industry is in.
We need to make sure that we're true to what we're doing. We don't get greedy. We don't price ourselves out of the market, but we also need to make sure that we're commanding prices for the wines which are appropriate for the high quality that they are. And the sky's the limit, I think. I can't wait for the next few years and just see how it grows and how many more exciting wines come out of Tassie.
We've been here for a long time, working and working and working and discovering and trying and pushing ourselves and pushing each other. And we're just excited that people are really starting to take notice.
Cheers.
Cheers.
We hope you enjoyed the show. We're on Facebook and we'd love to hear from you. And don't forget our regular Landline is on Sunday at the new time of 12:30. Next time on A Taste of Landline, farming emus for oil.
There's a number of uses, good for skin, good for joints.
How conservation can pay its way on a successful farm.
I'm very passionate about conservation, I'm very passionate about farming, I'm very passionate about marrying the two.
And we meet the man who's been delivering fresh fruit and veg for more than half a century.